Mzansi. I'm Daphne Naidoo from the Gauteng Department of Social Development. I'm here to discuss a very important topic that I think all of us should be aware of. In the month of May, as various government departments, communities, NGOs, and so forth, we commemorate Child Protection Month. In the past, it used to be a week, but we have realized that a week is not enough. And therefore, due to the escalating violence against children, we decided as government that we need to take a month long to commemorate this escalating problem when it comes to abuse of children. Now, this year, the Gauteng Department's focus is on sexual offences against children and especially statutory rape. Now, we do have a specific law that covers, offences or sexual offences against children, which is the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act, which is 32 of 2007. Now, what is criminal offences against children? It means any sexual activity involving a child under the age of 16. It is considered to be illegal, regardless whether the child has consented or not. Now, we do know that children older than that may consent, but also note that there could be sexual grooming, and sexual grooming in itself is a criminal offense. But broader and looking at the broader topic, let's talk about child abuse. When we talk about child abuse in itself, we talk about 4 types of abuse. We talk about physical abuse, we talk about sexual abuse, which I just covered now, we talk emotional abuse and deliberate neglect. Now, those are just your types of abuse that happens to children on a daily basis. But when one looks at the definition of abuse in terms of the Children's Act, one can say that abuse in relation to a child means any form of harm or ill treatment deliberately inflicted on a child, and it includes assaulting a child or any other form of deliberate injury to the child, sexually abusing that child or allowing the child to be sexually abused, bullying by another child, and that includes your online bullying as well, like your online being you can use all your media platforms, your WhatsApp, your Twitters, and so forth, a labor practice that exploits a child. Now, also more importantly, what we consider abuse is also exposing or subjecting a child to behavior that may harm the child psychologically or emotionally. So a broader term for abuse encompasses exactly what I said. Now, I want to cover other few topics, and I think this is important in relation to abuse. When we talk about reporting abuse, one can ask, but who's supposed to report? Am I obligated? Who obligates me? Why am I obligated? And so forth. When we talk about reporting is very important because in terms of the criminal, like I said, the criminal law, in terms of the sexual offences and related matters, we all are obligated by law to report any sexual offences or allegation of any sexual offences against children. But the Children's Act also makes it mandatory for people to report all types of abuse of children. And they do give you the mandatory officials that needs to report. I just want to mention a few mandatory officials, and I think it's important that they get to know who they are, because what it then further does, it tells you how you must report, who you must report it to, by when you must report it, and so forth. So your mandatory people can be any correctional officer, a dentist, a homeopath, a immigrational officer, a labor inspector, your legal practitioner, your medical practitioners, your doctors and so forth, your midwife, your minister of religion, your nurse, occupational therapist, physiotherapist, psychologists, religious leaders, social services professionals, social workers, speech therapists, teachers, traditional health practitioners, traditional leaders, and member of a staff, volunteer worker at a partial care facility, at a drop-in center, or child and youth care centers. So all these people need to and must report any form of abuse of children, but more importantly, all of us that have a legal obligation to report any forms of abuse. And if we don't report, the legal consequences by law, the Children's Act makes provision for that if it's a first-time offense of us not reporting, we can get a fine or imprisonment, or both a fine and an imprisonment up to 10 years. And if you more than once have been found guilty for such an offense of not reporting, we can be held accountable in terms of a fine and imprisonment, or fine and an imprisonment up to 20 years. So you can see it's quite serious. It makes it, compulsory. We are obligated by law to report any abuse of children. Now, further to that, what is important for us to consider, we on social media right now as we speak. And what we have found was that many people, especially your social media bloggers, your content makers, your community leaders and members and family members, political activists and so forth, have gone out and used social media to expose the abuse. And they want to expose more the perpetrators. But what you have done, and this is to caution you, is to say to you, those that I've just mentioned now, if you find that there are children that are being abused, please report it to the authorities as legislatively required. And who then you need to report this abuse to? It is social workers from the Department of Social Development, from our child protection organizations, the various child protection organizations, like all your welfare organizations, as well as the South African Police Services. Those are the three people that you need to report the abuse to. Now, when you take the law into your own hands and you want to sometimes expose such, what you do is you directly or indirectly expose the victim. And that in itself is an offense. And why I'm saying that? You remember I told you what is abuse and I gave you the definition, and let me repeat that definition to you. That definition is anyone that exposes or subjects a child to behavior that may harm the child psychologically or emotionally. That is considered abuse. So think about it. You expose this child when trying to expose the perpetrator, or you want to bring out the social ill in your community. You expose about what's happening in that household. You mention the child's names, or you may mention other family members, and automatically people know who to associate that name with, who is the child involved. Can you imagine the secondary trauma you have done to this child and to this family? Because the child still needs to remain in that household. In most cases, the child still remains in that community. The child still needs to go to that school. So can you imagine children? Children sometimes don't understand the full picture, the big picture rather, and therefore they can be, this teasing, the bullying and so forth. And sometimes one can also blame the victim to say, now that you reported this person, you are to be blamed, we can't trust you and so forth. So this child has to now deal with this trauma that you have created. And let me also say, in terms of Section 74 of the Children's Act, it says that when it comes to publication of information relating to proceedings, no person may, without the permission of the court, in any manner publish any information relating to the proceedings of a children's court which reveals or may reveal the name or identity of a child or who is a party or witness to the proceedings. So that in itself as well, if this matter has gone to the children's court or any other courts, and you decide now that you want to expose the names of this child and so forth, or any other party to the proceedings, you may be held criminally liable. And the same, in terms of the offenses, if it's a first time, fine and 10 years imprisonment, or both a fine and imprisonment, and if it's more than once, you got a fine or imprisonment up to 20 years. So that becomes very important in terms of not going out and publicizing. But yeah, you have a responsibility, and I get that. You want to expose, you want to bring out, and we like that. We like that you want to bring out this information. But guess what? You can still do it within the ambit of the law. You can still ensure that this happens without exposing and putting up photos. Block up the children. If there's any children, not just the victim or other children in that family, any children for that matter, maybe while you are taking these videos or photos, block out the faces of children. Bring out information without, about the abuse, about what has happened, but without sharing information about where the family lives, without giving photos about the house where the person is, because you can talk to the issue and not necessarily the people in the issue, or in this case itself. So there's many ways you can still expose, still bring the issue out without exposing, parties to the proceedings in this matter. So that's my advice to you. I want to also talk to another very, very important, topic in this, right? We talked about, what is abuse. We talked about reporting of abuse, and we talked about using social media not to expose the victims and the families of the victims. The other bigger issue I'm seeing, or we are seeing within communities, within families, is when one receives a social grant to take care of these children. As the Social Assistance Act, we provide various social assistance to individuals within families, especially children. There are different types of grants that we provide, what you call grants or social assistance. We have the child support grant. They have the child support grant, which is the top-up grant as well to the child support grant. We have the foster care grants and so forth. And what we are seeing is that more and more families, more and more mothers, more and more extended families are taking this money for their own use instead of utilizing that money for the best interest of the child. Now, what is important is for us to understand when we talk about care of a child, part of that social assistance is to allow you to care for the child. And I want to talk to what is the definition of care in the Children's Act. It's not as simple as you think. It is when one looks at care in relation to a child, includes where within available means providing the child with a suitable place to live, living conditions that are conducive to the child's health, well-being and development, the necessary financial support, safeguarding and promoting the well-being of the child, protecting the child from maltreatment, abuse, neglect, degradation, discrimination, exploitation, and any other physical, emotional, or moral harm or assets, respecting, protecting, and promoting and securing the fulfillment of and guarding against any of the child's rights as set out in the Bill of Rights, which is in terms of the Constitution. Now, those are all part of care. Guiding, directing, and securing the child's education and upbringing, including religious and cultural education and upbringing in a manner appropriate to the child's age, maturity, and stage of development. Now, you see, all this forms part of care, and we just thought, just providing the child's basic needs, food, clothing, and shelter, and we're good to go. But that money that is given by the Social Assistance Act, the various grants, is to ensure that very care that we spoke about now, that money is used for that. But we are not finding that. We are finding the mothers. Where are you going at the time that you need to receive the grant? You are at the local shebeen. You are spending the money on other stuff for yourselves instead of looking at the care of the child. Now, that in itself is a criminal offense. If you do not care for that child and money is provided, you shall be accountable in terms of the Children's Act. And it is a statutory offense, which is a criminal offense, and you shall be prosecuted in the criminal courts if you continue doing what you are doing. So families out there, please spread this message that the money that is given by government for the use of children must be used for the use of children. So that's a very important aspect I want to bring out. The other issue, and we are finding, is a lot of mothers out there, and especially when we relate issues to gender-based violence, mothers out there, and I'm gonna say specifically women and mothers. I'm not saying men are not abused. But I'm talking to mothers who have children. And at this stage, I must bring this aspect to your attention, is that when we go through a lot as mothers, or you may go through a lot as mothers, or somebody that is going through a lot. When you have a choice of having a child, maybe sometimes it's planned or unplanned, and at most times it's unplanned. If you have not taken contraceptives, which is readily available at your local clinics, or you have not opted for the abortion, which is legal in the country, though some of you may disapprove due to religious reasons, but that's fine. That's your choice, and you have a choice in this country whether to abort or not, but it is legal in the country. But say you eventually have this child. You know, the other issue that we are talking about is when we talk about wanting to relinquish your child, and especially when it comes to safe relinquishment versus dumping your child in your fields and bins and so forth, and where you basically abuse and you wanting to literally, you know, this causes the child to be eventually, you know, to die due to the fact that we have placed this child out there in harsh conditions. Now, I'm talking to those mothers. You see, the thing is, the good news to us is that we don't just automatically have children or have babies. We generally have 9 months to make that decision. And in the 9 months, you usually access your primary healthcare facilities, which are your clinics. Please talk to any of your nurses out there, you know, or what options and services is available to you, so that you are able to be provided with the necessary resources and services and advice and knowledge to make informed decisions. But say you eventually have the child, you also have the option of leaving your child, you know, with the hospital, because mothers have a moral obligation in wanting to upfront state that they want to relinquish their child due to various reasons. And like I said, you have various reasons. However, mothers have a legal obligation to safely relinquish their child with families, or alternatively within the childcare system. And the childcare system is made up of various institutions. I just spoke about, you know, the Department of Health, your clinics and hospitals, the Department of Social Development, our affiliates, which is our child protection organizations, and also the South African Police Services. What is important is, however, safe relinquishment of a child does not equate to you wanting to remain anonymous, because anonymity of the mother equates to abandonment of a child. Let me repeat so you understand clearly what I said. You may safely relinquish your child, but safe relinquishment does not equate to you wanting to remain anonymous. Anonymity equates to being to you abandoning your child. So it means that at that given time, you can say to us, please, I'm not able to take care of this child for whatever reason. I need you to take this child from me because I'm not in a position. And like I said, you may have various reasons as to why you're not able to. But at the same time, you cannot remain anonymous. And we don't also want you to make a long-term decision on a short-term crisis. Because there are mothers who have given up their children. We have removed those children, but worked with those mothers where they can make an informed decision of whether that is what is in the interest for themselves and the child. And long term, we have found mothers, you know, we have assisted mothers. We've taken them for various programs, skills development, linked them to employment opportunities and so forth, whereby they can get their children back. We've also spoken to extended family members. We actually, you know, try to build relationships with the mother and her extended family members. We got fathers to take up their roles and so forth, so that families can remain intact. Because, you know, ultimately, it is your decision, and we have to work with you. But we know at times you may not. There may be a possibility where we may not return the child with you, and therefore we may consider placing the child into a more permanent alternative care, because initially when we do remove the child, we will place the child in temporary safe care in our children's homes, in foster care as well. But if we cannot return the child to you for whatever reasons that you have that we cannot return, we may opt for other permanent options like adoption, you know, both national and inter-country adoptions. So mothers, please do not place your children in the fields, do not place them in the bins, do not kill them, because that's what it comes down to. Do not. We are here for you. I know it's a difficult decision, but come forward, tell us you need your help. But let me also talk about, you know, I talked about our responsibilities towards, you know, families out there, towards mothers out there, towards children out there. But let me make this very clear about our responsibility. We have a responsibility as well, because imagine if we have to take that away from all individuals out there from society. Government cannot do it alone. We need your assistance. We need you to meet us halfway. If we are providing services for you, if we are providing alternative care, residential care for your child, we expect you to come forward, share the correct information with us, share your information so we can work with you and see how best we can work together so that we can ensure stability of a child into your family, or alternatively in another family if needs be. But we need you to play your part where we need you to play your part. I also want to then cover, and lastly, I think this is very important, right? We do know for this year, we do have, like I said, rape as part of, statutory rape as well, which is a big issue. Families and friends out there, and you need to be talking to each other as communities, as well as the community leaders. When you sit around the table as families, when you sit around the table as individuals, when you sit as communities, I think we have a big problem in this country when it comes to children having children. If you look at the stats relating to this, it's quite frightening. We have become, what we have done as a society is normalize the abnormal. Children can't be having children. We can't be creating these monsters, with our perpetrators, and they get away with it. And those very perpetrators are part of our family. Very much the victims are part of our family, the perpetrators are part of our family. And what are we doing to ensure that you don't become victims, that you don't become perpetrators? And we owe it to each other to educate and empower each other on our roles and our responsibility as a family unit. Come seek advice, get knowledge. When you, like the social media now that you are listening to, this is information that is given to you. Where can you access this information? Instead of just looking at just random social media, go in and learn. Get a topic, talk about a topic, find out. But here's the thing. I can get away as public servants or people that is affiliated to us to serve you when you do not know your rights. When you don't know your rights, we can take advantage of that. So you have a responsibility to learn. You have a responsibility to know, what am I as Mrs. Naidoo, or what is the department, and what are the various departments, what is the various NGOs and so forth, was to provide to you and your family. So at this stage, it's important that we get a grip to understand. And lastly, I want to leave you with a few words, and these words are, as families, as communities, let's go out there and say this to each other. Child abuse is a national crisis. As a society, we have become complacent to the issues faced by children, and we have normalized, like I said, the abnormal. Society has certainly turned a blind eye on protecting and reporting any form of abuse and vulnerability of children. Lastly, when it comes to support, I think, we try to create dialogues with you out there. We want to have a bottom-up approach. We want to continue to work together to protect our children. And most importantly, I think it's important that we speak these issues. At the end of the day, adults need to speak up. When bad people take over, and when good people keep quiet, then bad people take over. And that's why they take over, is because we are not talking the tough talk. We're not calling each other out. We are not saying to each other, this cannot be, it cannot be under my watch. You cannot expect this to be not my problem. It's somebody else's problem. You cannot keep quiet. Going forward, I think, I'm trying to leave you with a message. And I think at this stage, I want to say this to you. We urge every one of you to be part of the solution and not the problem. We know that you can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. And lastly, with the words of our previous president, our late president, Nelson Mandela, I want to leave you with these words. Safety and security don't just happen. They are the result of a collective consensus and public investment. We owe our children, the most vulnerable citizens in our society, a life free of violence and fear. With this quote in mind, let us, the adults, be a beacon of hope and love to every vulnerable child we may encounter. I thank you.